A man using the name William L. Toomey was found dead on December 4th back in 1982 in the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Boise, Idaho. This man has never been identified, and it's believed that the name he used, William L. Toomey, was not his real name. An autopsy later revealed that this man had died from ingesting a lethal dose of cyanide via a cyanide capsule. The man had removed all items of personal identification before committing suicide. At the time of his death, the man was between 35 and 45 years of age. He weighed around 175 pounds and was 6 feet in height. He had gray eyes with a hint of brown. He seemed to be well-groomed. He was clean-shaven. His hair was styled, and his fingernails were clean. The man was extremely tanned, had sun-bleached wavy blonde hair, and was dressed in Western-style clothing. Because of this, authorities believe that he may have been from somewhere in the southwest part of the United States, perhaps California, Arizona, New Mexico, or even Texas. There was some speculation that this man was connected to the infamous Tylenol murder case from Chicago, which took place 2 months before the man's death, as well as the murders of 2 priests from southwestern part of the United States. The man's real identity remains a mystery. However, the case is still under investigation, and law enforcement are trying to identify who this man was. Welcome back to the show. My name is Yoras. I'm here with Rain. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. As always, feeling completely good, completely great. How are you today?
I'm good. So what do you make of this story so far? William L. Toomey, a man found dead in Boise back in the early 80s, and presumably he was using a alias. His real name is not William L. Toomey. He's probably someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you make of it so far?
So far, it seems pretty well planned, pretty well executed, or so we thought.
Yeah, because up until this day, we don't really know the real identity of this man. So let me walk you through some information, and then we'll talk a little bit about this more. So the man was using the name William L. Toomey.
L. Toomey.
L. Toomey, yeah. William, or we could just refer to him as William Tumi. It's going to be easier for us, right? He was found dead on December 4th, back in 1982, in the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Boise, Idaho. 3 weeks later, on December 28th, so right after Christmas, over 300 members of the church gathered together and paid their final respects to this man. But this funeral was unusual in that no one, neither the priest nor the parishioners, knew who this man was that they were burying. Let me tell you a little bit about how this whole thing went down. So shortly after 5 p.m. on the afternoon, on the day when he was, found dead, which was December 4th, members of the church began to arrive for the 6 p.m. mass in the evening. A man named Leo Lieburn, the church's head usher, and his elderly mother Grace were among the first parishioners to arrive. When Grace got about 6 rows down, she stopped and kicked something on the ground. It was a man lying face down across the kneeler. Moments later, a woman named Virginia Almquist, a registered nurse, arrived at the church as well. Now, Leo told her that a man had just collapsed. She figured that someone was ill or had fainted, so she quickly ran to the man. She felt no pulse and noticed that his arm was rigid and cold. She realized that this man was already dead. The man was a younger man. She did not recognize him. No one else at the church recognized him either. Virginia went to the church's pastor, Father Thomas Foucher, and told him what had happened. Now, Thomas Foucher later contacted the Boise Police Department. We have a sketch of this man. I will be showing this on the YouTube channel, so for anyone listening who would like to see how William Tumi looked, you could find it on the YouTube channel. Please describe William to the audience, Rain.
Well, he had blonde hair, lighter eyes. He seems, I don't know. My initial reaction, like I told you earlier, kind of looks Swede.
Looks like a Swedish man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he has light hair.
Lighter features in
Yeah,
general.
definitely lighter features, right? He also is significantly tanned. He had a very significant tan that is not
Common.
normal to have in, I believe, Boise, Idaho in December. You're not supposed to be this tanned. So at approximately 5:45 p.m., Sergeant Frank Richardson arrives at the church, and he made an extraordinary discovery. In the dead man's shirt pocket was a brown envelope that contained 19 $100 bills. In total, it was $1,900. And there was also a typewritten note. The note read, "In the event of my death, the enclosed currency should give more than adequate compensation for my funeral or disposal, preferred to be cremated, expenditures. What is left over, please take this as a contribution to this church. God will see to your honesty in this." It was signed W.M. L. Toomey, presumably short for William L. Tumi. And we have the note. We have the actual note, how it looked like. So it seems like the note was typewritten, and there's a signature below the typewritten note. An autopsy later revealed that the man had died from ingesting a lethal dose of cyanide via a cyanide capsule. So do you know what the cyanide capsule is?
No, I was about to ask that. Like, is it a thing? Or do you actually have to buy like a capsule and fill it up with cyanide or something?
So I looked into what the cyanide capsule actually means. So back in the day, they invented the cyanide capsule and they gave it to special force agents or spies. And it's a pill that after you ingest it, you will die because it will have the lethal amount of cyanide. It's supposed to make you die pretty quickly, and you're allegedly not going to feel any pain. And it's basically meant to be used by people who want to commit suicide if they are, like, let's say, infiltrating a hostile country, and they will be, I don't know, subdued to like torture. So in order to avoid that, you're just going to swallow this pill and then you will die instead of you being captured. And, so it was that type of ordeal. I have no idea how you would go about getting a cyanide capsule.
Yeah, that's my second question. I'm assuming that this is not available to the public.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah. So how did this guy got that pill?
Never explained. This particular detail was never explained anywhere. So it was pretty bizarre. The man was dressed in Western-style clothing, which included blue jeans, some cowboy boots, a green long-sleeved casual shirt, and a Seiko wristwatch. You know Seiko, it's like this Japanese brand of watches. His belt was brown leather with a large buckle, displaying a Mexican 100 peso coin in the center. It was traced to a gift shop in Phoenix, Arizona. So this is pretty bizarre immediately. Like, he's wearing something. He's wearing a buckle that's from Arizona, but he himself is found dead in Boise. And also, he's wearing Western-styled clothing, blue jeans, cowboy boots. Definitely, so far, doesn't seem like he is from Idaho, Boise. Seems like he's from the southern part of the United States.
Oh yeah, the tan alone. Tan alone is like an easy indicator that it's not from Idaho.
Exactly. I would agree with that one. Around the man's neck was a Western-style bolo-type tie made of turquoise and silver. It said P. White was stamped on the back of it. P. White.
What's a P White? Is it a brand?
I have no idea. Just the letter P and then the word white was stamped on the back of this tie, which is kind of strange. Inside of the man's rear pocket, Sergeant Richardson found a wallet There was only $53 in cash. All items of personal identification had been removed. The worn spots on the wallet suggested that it must have been crammed full of information. However, the man apparently destroyed everything in it before entering the church. At the time, police could not match anyone reported missing in the United States or Canada with this name, William L. Toomey. However, they did locate a business in Boston, Massachusetts with this same exact name. Curiously, it manufactures ceremonial garments worn by priests. So you could kind of make a connection, right? This guy seemingly commits a suicide in the church, and he is, going by the name of William L. Toomey, and there's a store in Boston that sells priest clothing. But then, again, authorities have found absolutely no connection between the business and this man. Police suspect that the man used the name William L. Toomey as an alias because they do not believe that this man would remove all of his identification from his wallet and then sign his own name on his suicide note. Doesn't make sense, right? He also noted, the sergeant, that the man's signature did not have the natural letter strokes one would expect if it were his actual signature. You seem so confused right now. Please react a little bit to the story.
Of course, no. I'm getting the sense, honestly, I'm getting the sense that it was a pretty well planned suicide, if we could say that word on YouTube. It seems like everything is meant for investigators to be thrown off or be confused.
The man wanted to protect his identity.
Yeah, in any way that he can. And I was actually looking at the signature and I was thinking, could it possibly be signed with the non-dominant hand? If the guy was like right-handed, was it possible that he wrote or he signed his signature with his left hand?
That's a good thought. I never thought about that way, but yeah. That's actually a good observation. Maybe it was written with the...
Yeah, but it was neatly written, actually. If I use my left hand, I wouldn't be able to sign something like this.
I mean, I can't even sign with my right hand. So, yeah. Moving on. The man's fingerprints were taken, but no matches were found in the FBI or Idaho state databases. Sergeant Richardson believes the man planned to commit suicide either during or after confession with a church priest. Witnesses saw him sitting in the church near the confessional at around 4 p.m. Let's remember that he was passed away at 5. Sergeant Richardson believes that the man had miscalculated how long it would take for the cyanide to take effect. He suspects that the man took the capsule and died while waiting for the confessional to open. Sergeant Richardson also believes that the man was intimately connected to the Catholic Church, which kind of makes sense to me. I mean, he did indicate in his note that the rest of the money should be taken as a donation to the church.
But could it possibly also be just a guilt from a regular churchgoer?
Oh, potentially. We have some information coming up that you might be onto something here. But once again, this man is completely innocent until proven otherwise.
Of course.
Father Foucher, the priest that was leading the church at the time, also theorizes that the man had a Catholic background. He believes that something happened in this man's life that led him to commit suicide, but he wanted to do it in a way so that he could make his peace with God before he died. So Father Foucher also believed that this man was religious, but Father Foucher does not indicate that he knows this man. Let's move on. Nothing suspicious about Father Foucher so far, right?
So far, nothing.
Okay, at the time of his death, the man was between 35 and 45 years of age. He weighed around 175 pounds and was 6 feet tall. He was well groomed and clean shaven. The man was extremely tanned and had sun-bleached wavy blonde hair and was dressed in Western style clothing. Because of this reason, authorities believe that he may have been from somewhere in the southwestern part of the United States, perhaps California, Arizona, New Mexico, or even Texas. He also appeared to have an athlete's build and may have been a swimmer. Okay.
Interesting.
So what do you think about this story?
It's definitely a mystery, that's for sure. However, so far, it seems to me like it's very well planned. Well, not really well planned because he died before the mass or before the confession, but at the same time, it seemed like if he actually, if it was a suicide, then he was thinking about it for quite a while.
Yeah, but it's very strange to me because, okay, what we know of the man is that he is somewhere in his 30s or in his 40s. He has a big tan, extreme tan, which is not natural to acquire in Idaho. So he was probably from southwestern part of the United States. He had some money on him. He had, close to $2,000 in total. So he wasn't broke. On top of that, he was someone who could get a hold of a cyanide pill.
Exactly.
Which, I don't know how you acquire such a item, but this man definitely was able to do it.
Yeah, I was thinking something like probably could have been a spy. Do you think it's a possibility? Hence the attention to details. Like he had a sun-bleached hair. He had a tan. He flew all the way to Idaho. He dressed up in cowboy boots. There was a typewritten note with a signature that you can't decipher, with the name that would lead to another place.
No, the name doesn't really lead anywhere. I think it
to the
leads to
business.
kind of business, but as I understand, it's not connected.
Okay, so there was a fake name. He was clean that day, clean shaven, neatly dressed, and he had
Potentially was a swimmer.
potentially was a swimmer. Exactly.
Yeah, who is this guy?
Yeah, who seems like he could have been a spy, like just because of the cyanide pill. I don't think a regular person could ever.
Athletic body
Yeah,
was able to completely eliminate any trace of him.
exactly.
Yeah.
Any.
Yeah, who was this person?
And the miscalculation, the only miscalculation in this close to perfect plan was the timing.
And we don't even know if it was a miscalculation.
Ooh.
It's a theory that he miscalculated. Somehow they believe that he wanted to go to the confessional before he passed away. I feel like if you're going to do that, then you probably go to the confessional and then take the cyanide pill. You don't want to take the cyanide pill and then go to the confessional. That part didn't make sense to me. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that's true. So do you think it could have been intentional?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating,
Yeah, thinking about it more and more, it's like seemingly taken intentionally. Having that perfect plan.
Yeah. All right. So there were some speculations that the man was potentially connected to the Tylenol murders, a series of poisonings of Tylenol bottles that left 7 people dead in Chicago. The bottles were all poisoned with cyanide, which was the same poison that the man used to commit suicide. The murders took place 2 months before the man's death. However, no evidence has been found to link these two cases. What do you think about, first of all, have you ever heard about the Tylenol murders in Chicago?
No, not at all. It's completely unfamiliar. It seems like it's murder, but I could be wrong.
Do you even know what Tylenol is?
Oh, yeah. I take it from time to time. It's for headaches, right?
Yeah, it's something like that, right? It's a medication.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chicago Tylenol murders were a series of poisoning death resulting from drug tampering in the Chicago metropolitan area in 1982. The victims consumed Tylenol branded capsules that had been laced with potassium cyanide. 7 people died in the original poisonings, and there were several more deaths in the subsequent copycat crimes. No suspect has been charged or convicted of the poisonings, but New York City resident James William Lewis was convicted of extortion for sending a letter to Tylenol's manufacturer, the company Johnson & Johnson, that took responsibility, this man took responsibility within the letter for the death and demanded $1 million to stop, lacing Tylenol pills with cyanide. The incidents led to reforms in the packaging of over the counter drugs and to federal anti tampering laws. So, the Chicago Tylenol murders occurred between September and October of 1982. William Tumi was found dead on December 4th of that same year. So, it was within months of each other. Chicago and Boise, Idaho are very far away from each other because Chicago is in the East Coast. Boise, Idaho is already on the western side of America. So both locations are kind of far apart from each other. What do you think? Do you think there's a chance? Do you think you would connect these?
It's a definite no for me. Just my opinion.
Yeah, for me too. I probably don't think that.
It's connected, right?
I don't think it's connected. Or I mean,
no, because why would you write a note, sign it with your fake name, put it in your pocket or like breast pocket, and take a Tylenol?
And take a Tylenol?
Yeah.
No. So I think you misunderstood.
Okay.
The
So instead
connection.
of being a Tylenol,
No. So I think what I'm trying to say here is
mm-hmm.
that the man, William Tumi,
Yeah.
could have been the culprit behind.
Oh.
Because he got his hands on cyanide somehow, and then the culprit behind the Tylenol murders also had acquired cyanide.
Oh, now it's more interesting.
So yeah, it's not. Yeah, I understand what you were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That
Like
the
he was one of the
took
victims.
Tylenol. No. Yeah, that's definitely not what's happening there. But yeah, this is the connection that some people made.
This is more interesting. However, I would be more convinced if it was somewhere sunnier and warmer, mainly because of the tan and the sun-bleached hair. Not much
Yeah.
connection for me, but how about for you?
Yeah, I would say
A little too far-fetched, right?
I don't think so. I wouldn't connect it. But I wouldn't discount it either.
True.
Investigators also looked into the possibility that this unidentified man, William Tumi, may have been connected to the 2 murders of priests in Southwest during the early 1980s. So I'm going to explain what I'm talking about here. So the first priest that was murdered was a man named Father Patrick Ryan. He was 49 years of age, and his death took place on December 21st, 1981, so approximately a year prior to William Tumi's death. Father Patrick Ryan was found naked, bound, and beaten to death in a motel room in Odessa, Texas. And on November 10th, in 1982, another priest, 54-year-old Father Benjamin Carrier, was found naked, bound, and asphyxiated in a motel room in Yuma, Arizona. So another guy So I'm going to bring in another name here, but please stop me if this is getting confusing.
Another James.
Yeah. James Reyes later drunkenly confessed to Father Ryan's murder, one of the two priests. He was convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison. However, no physical evidence found at the crime scene matched him, and he had time-stamped receipts that showed it was virtually impossible for him to have committed the murder. And in 2003, he was paroled, and he continues to maintain his innocence. So we have a man named James Reyes who was accused of one of the priest's murders, but it was later proven that there was no way he could have committed the murder. And he was basically paroled. And recently he was completely found innocent. And I think it's a tragedy if James Reyes was actually innocent. He spent 21 years, if I'm reading this correctly. He spent 21 years in prison for something he didn't do.
And just because he got drunk.
And confessed and later redacted that confession. It's insane. This man literally
blame it on
served
the vodka.
21 years in prison, even though it was proven that he could not have murdered one of the men. But now let's bring it back to William Tumi. Can William Tumi be responsible for one or both of these men's murders? Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about it, right? So, Sergeant Richardson was the first one. Sergeant Richardson was the guy who responded to the scene when they found William Tumi's body. He's the first one to connect the murders and William Tumi. He believes that the man had intimate connections with the Catholic Church. He noted that the man's tan and clothing indicate he was from the Southwest, where the murders had occurred. Both priests were murdered in the Southwest America. The belt in particular was traced to Arizona, where Father Carrier was murdered. Father Carrier's murder also occurred just weeks before the man's death, before Tumi's death. However, no evidence has been found to connect the unidentified man to both of these murders. I have a little bit information about both of them, about Father Patrick Ryan's murder and Father Benjamin Carrier's murder. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about those two, really dark cases. And then I'll want you to kind of give us your take. Do you think there could be a connection? So before we do that, I would like to do a real quick water break. Okay, welcome back. Let's start out with the murder of Father Patrick Ryan on December 21st, 1981, so a year prior to William Tumi committing suicide in the church. Father Patrick Ryan was found murdered in a motel room in Odessa, Texas. During the initial investigation, the police interviewed a man named James Reyes, the same man that we already talked about, who was the last known person to see Father Ryan alive. Mr. Reyes established through multiple witnesses, store receipts, and even a speeding ticket that he was in New Mexico at the time of the murder. Texas Rangers verified the information and ruled him out as a suspect. According to court testimony, Reyes and Father Patrick Ryan were both living in Denver City in December of 1981. It's in Texas. Don't get confused. It's not Denver. It's Denver City in Texas. It's not Denver in Colorado.
These names actually are kind of confusing. Odessa. Initially, I thought you were talking about Ukraine.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When Patrick Ryan gave Mr. Reyes, the falsely accused guy who had to spend 21 years in prison, that's insane, a ride to his impounded truck in Hobbs, a city in New Mexico, because this location was like on the border of Texas and New Mexico, so it was really easy for them to just cross the state lines to New Mexico. And this happened on the morning of December 21st. Now, the next morning, a maid found Patrick Ryan's battered body, his arms tied behind his back, inside the motel room he'd rented, under a false name, using a false license plate number. A silver chalice and an accordion were missing from the room and never found again. So just to kind of give you a story here, to kind of like reiterate what's happening here, Ryan gives Reyes a ride, and Reyes is the last person to see Ryan alive. Next morning, the maid finds Ryan dead in a motel room that he was renting under a false name, using a false license plate number, which is kind of weird. Why did Father Patrick Ryan rent out the motel under a false name? I guess we'll never know. Father Patrick Ryan's stolen car, because his car was stolen apparently, was found at Moose Lodge in Hobbs, New Mexico. And his wallet and a bloody credit card was found at a nearby gas station. Thanks to the combination of the new technology and old-fashioned eyeball comparisons, it was determined that a bloody fingerprint on the inside of the motel room door matches that of a man named Charles Burkett. A bloody thumbprint left on a shower head matches a man named Bobby Collins, and a fingerprint left on a plastic cup matches that of Gary Ehrman. In addition, Reyes, Patrick Ryan, Charles Burkett, and Gary Ehrman were eliminated as the persons who left a fingerprint on the cruise control of Ryan's stolen car, but they could not eliminate Bobby Collins, another man who was, what we now know, involved in Patrick Ryan's murder. The same is true for the bloody print left on Ryan's discarded credit card. All three men were living in Odessa at the time of the murder, and Gary Ehrman registered at the motel an hour after Ryan Patrick. So it seems that there were three men whose fingerprints were found at the crime scene, and the man who was falsely accused, his fingerprints were not found at the crime scene. So it seems like this case is kind of solved. All of these three men have since died. I don't know if they died in time for them to be accused of the murders. I'm not really sure what happened there. I didn't really look that much into it. But this is the first case that, some people are connecting to William Tumey's identity, I guess. But I don't think that we can connect William Tumi to Father Patrick Ryan's murder, because there seems like a lot of people are involved, and you already have three people whose fingerprints they have on the record, but they don't have William Tumey's fingerprints. And as far as I recall, they did get William Tumey's fingerprints when they found him dead in the church. And I don't think they found his fingerprints in this motel room. So for me, my gut feeling is saying that William Tumi is not connected to Father Patrick Ryan's murder.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I don't think it's in any way connected to the murders, to at least this particular priest's murders.
Now, let's jump to the murder of another priest, Father Benjamin Carrier, which I think has a higher chance of being potentially connected to William Tumi. Once again, I want to say that William Tumi could have been a great man and had nothing sinister about him. So we're just pure speculation here.
Of course, we're just stating the investigation or the facts.
Exactly, just kind of talking about the case. Now, murder of Father Benjamin Carrier was more interesting to me in this regard, since I think there's a more of a chance that William Tumi could potentially be connected, even though I still would say it's unlikely. But there is certain details that makes you think. So in 1982, Father Benjamin Carrier checked into a hotel in Yuma, Arizona, with two unknown men. Days later, he was discovered bound and dead in his hotel bed, and the two men were nowhere to be found. Who were the men that killed Father Benjamin? So the story goes as follows. On November 8th in 1982, this is less than a month before William Tumi commits suicide. Less than a month, okay? And it's in Arizona where people do get tans,
Ooh.
okay? And his tie was also from Arizona. The tie that was found on William Tumi. It was traced back to Arizona. Okay, going back to the story. At 3 p.m., Father Benjamin checked himself into the El Rancho Motel in Yuma, Arizona. Yuma, Arizona is right on the border of Arizona and California. And it was never concluded exactly why he was visiting the small town, but it was stated that he headed west for a meeting in El Centro, California, and possibly stopped in Yuma to visit friends he knew there. When he was filling out the forms for his hotel room, the clerk noticed another man in his truck. This man was described as between 20 to 25 years of age, with a medium build and about 5'6", and having light facial hair. So I could possibly immediately discount this man as being potentially William Tumi because his age and height do not match William Tumi. This man was in his 20s and he was 5'6", while William L. Tumi was in his 30s or 40s and he was 6 foot. So I'm pretty sure this is not William Tumi. However, Father Benjamin was seen once again with this same man in the truck, as well as an additional man in the pool during his stay around 5 p.m. that Tuesday. The other man was described as having a medium-length brown hair and light skin. One of the men had a tattoo on the underside of his left forearm. We don't know which of these two men had that tattoo, unfortunately. It's not been kind of specified. It is believed that Father Benjamin picked these individuals up as hitchhikers, as he was known to do, despite many people in his circle detailing how dangerous that could be. On the afternoon of November 10, so 2 days into his stay at the motel, a housekeeper of the hotel entered the chaplain's room to discover him dead in his bed. He was laying face down with his hands tied behind his back, his legs tied together and cold to the touch. It is possible that Father Benjamin had been stripped of his clothes, but the lead detective at the time chose not to confirm or deny this. The housekeeper rushed to the front desk to describe what she had discovered, where the staff immediately called the police. Authorities arrived at 2:15 p.m. and declared Father Benjamin dead. He had been asphyxiated. His 1981 Toyota pickup truck and wallet were also missing, but the car was later discovered 2 days after his murder, 295 miles north of Yuma in Las Vegas. Investigators traveled to Vegas in order to process the car for evidence, but if they found anything worthwhile, it has never been released. Days after the murder, a staff writer for the San Diego Union Tribune newspaper wrote about Father Benjamin, stating that he had a prior history of being kidnapped by hitchhikers, believe it or not, and had even once had a knife held to his throat. Those instances never dissuaded the man from helping others. He never hardened towards those who needed him, and continued to see the good in others despite it all. After the murder, many people spoke of the different ways he tried to help others. Beyond giving a ride to the random hitchhiker, he also was willing to open his own home to anyone who was in need, and was described after the murder as probably one of the most selfless people I've ever met. He was kind, gentle, and terrific example. He left a great impression by Reverend Larry Dolan, who succeeded him as chaplain at the University of San Diego. Despite the composite sketch, this is where things get interesting. Despite the composite sketch being made up of the two men, neither have ever been identified. In 2019, it was released that new evidence was being processed, which produced a new lead in the case, but he refused to say more about what that entailed, as investigators are still working the nearly 40-year-old case right now. Currently, in 2022, no new additional information has been released, and it appears no arrests have been made in the murder of Father Benjamin Carrier. But where things really get interesting for me is when we take a look at the sketches of the two men. And I have in our show notes the two men sketches, the two men that were seen with Father Benjamin Carrier during his stay at the motel where he was subsequently murdered. So I have these two sketches here pulled for us, and also below that is a sketch of William Tumi. And William Tumi kind of looks similar to both of those men.
Yeah, looking at it, he actually does. Yep. I could see some similarities, but I could also see some differences. Mainly the nose. The nose shape. It's kind of different. What do you think?
Yeah, the nose looks a bit different from the sketch.
The sketches. Were those men described as, I don't know, tanned with lighter shade of hair?
We don't know that. We don't have this information, or at least I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say.
Because if one of these men in the sketches had like a lighter shade of hair, sorry, it would have been a game changer.
Well, the thing is, I think one of them was in his 20s. So we're pretty sure one of them is not William Tumi. It's just hard for me because I don't know which one of these two men in the sketch is the 20-something.
I would assume it's the skinnier one.
Okay, and the guy with the bigger hair is the other guy.
Yeah, because that other guy kind of looks a little bit more like William.
Yeah. So, yeah. So what does
Can
that
you see
mean? Do
it?
you think that there's a chance that William Toomey was that other guy who was hanging out by the pool? And this
Not
is happening
necessarily,
like
no.
a month
Mm-hmm.
apart.
Not necessarily, no. What do you think about it?
I don't know. I think I don't know honestly, but the only thing I'm gonna say, it makes you think. It makes you think because
Definitely.
the tie that Toomey had was from Arizona. Yeah, and this is happening in close proximity, and there was a like time wise, like it happened kind of not that long time ago from one case to another. It all happened within a month, and then also a priest was murdered, and this guy committed suicide in a church and made a donation to the church. It's strange.
Pretty strange. However, the lack of information is just kind of unfortunate.
Unfortunate, yeah.
Yeah. It would have been easier to connect the dots if we have a little bit more information. Like hair color.
Yeah, or
And
even age of the
yeah,
second man.
exactly.
There was another man. There was a man who was murdered, another priest, in 1982. Father Reynaldo Rivera. He was murdered in New Mexico. And some people suspect that maybe this other third priest might be connected somehow to William Tumi. Now, we don't have a lot of information about this case, but I will just tell you the brief details. Father Reynaldo John Rivera, a Catholic priest of the Franciscan order, served as the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis in Santa Fe, New Mexico. On the evening of August 5th, 1982, so, some months before William and Toomey committed suicide, what's like 4 months apart. So basically, there was a phone call was placed to the rectory by a man who went by the name Michael Carmelo. He claimed his grandfather was dying near a rest stop in Waldo and that he had requested his last rites. Last rites, when a person is dying, the priest will talk to them. Father Patrick Gerard, the priest who answered this phone call, told the man that his eyesight was too poor for him to safely drive and asked that he would call back momentarily. Now, Reynaldo John Rivera, took the second call and agreed to meet the man and perform his grandfather's last rites. The caller stated that he would be waiting for Mr. Rivera in a blue pickup truck. Days later, Rivera's body was found several miles away from the rest stop, laying in a muddy field near the Waldo exit on Interstate 25. He had been shot once in the stomach and strangled with wire, possibly a coat hanger. Rivera's brown 1974 Chevrolet Malibu was discovered parked at a rest stop on Interstate 40 near Grants. Its gas tank was empty. His last rites kit was never found. The FBI intervened in the investigation and produced a psychological portrait of the person responsible for Rivera's death. The forensic psychologist determined the motive for Rivera's murder was revenge. Law enforcement briefly considered a recent parolee, a man who was recently paroled, as a suspect, but this man was ruled out due to his alibi, as well as his fingerprints not matching the unknown prints discovered on Rivera's vehicle. A former Santa Fe resident who later moved to New York was considered another suspect, but I don't think they matched him up either. So do you think that Father Reynaldo Rivera's case could somehow be also connected? I mean, it happened just a handful of months apart from each other, and it happened in southwestern America.
Ooh, this is more interesting, but once again, I'm not particularly convinced this is somehow connected.
I feel like everything here is very circumstantial. We have nothing.
It's nothing concrete.
Nothing concrete.
Like
it's
that
all,
would point us out that William actually did it.
Yeah, nothing concrete. Just circumstantial.
I mean, all of these murders could have been connected. It's just that we don't have like a concrete connection. Like that would indicate that it was William.
Yeah, it's all very circumstantial. That's all we have. Okay, so something pretty bizarre happened in 2019. Remember Father Foucher? The man who was the priest when William Tumi was found? Well, he was arrested in 2019 and charged with 10 counts of sexual exploitation of a child after CP was found on his computer. He later pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Investigators suspected that Father Foucher may have known William Tumi.
Well, that's a plot twist.
It's a plot twist. There's no necessarily concrete evidence connecting Father Foucher and Toomey.
Was he interviewed about this?
So I didn't find this information. We have some information about Father Foucher, who was a very bizarre character. Was accused of amassing thousands of CP images and videos. Thousands on his home computer. Now, the investigation took a toll on law enforcement as well. The prosecutor called Garden City Police Officer Detective John Brumbaugh to the stand on Thursday. Brumbaugh, who's been on the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for 5 years, said that he received a cyber tip that involved 2 images sent from WTF Fouch, what the Fouch, at AOL.com that was linked to the St. Mary Catholic Church website. So basically, I think this is how they first got to Foucher, because someone sent a cyber tip about Foucher's activities. The volume of images was something I haven't came across, the detective said, and added that the extreme nature of the images took a toll on himself and others involved in the investigation. And get this. Foucher said that he even once urinated in the wine that they would do during the ceremony. And the list of stuff just goes on. So Father Foucher was the priest who is, a terrible individual. And he was the priest where William Tumi was found dead. I mean, there could be absolutely no connection. But what do you think about this?
I am in so much rage. Like, so much. I am so angry right now. Like, how can someone that sick be a priest? Like, urinating on the wine? Wait, don't they just drink the wine? The priest themselves? So he drank his own piss?
I don't know what happened there, but we do have information. This man, I guess it was never proven that he did anything himself. His main conviction was due to him possessing CP.
Yeah, but there's no way I'm gonna be convinced this guy, this awful individual, never did anything.
Yeah, you never know.
2000. It was a mistake. He said it was a mistake. Like, the nerve.
Yeah, so circling back a little bit to, because it's not a Foucher episode, this is a Toomey episode. William Tumi, do you think that there is a chance that somehow Foucher knew of Toomey's identity? Do you see any kind of possibility?
I do see a possibility that Toomey could have been someone he essayed as a young kid.
I think at that time, both of them were at the same age.
Same age?
Yeah, because this happened in the 80s, in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I think Foucher himself was in his 30s, in the 80s.
I have no idea.
Foucher has passed away in prison, so he's not going to tell us anything either.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so in 2020, a new investigator began investigating Toomey's case, and something bizarre happened again. So he was surprised to find that the case file of William L. Toomey only contained a VHS tape with a copy of the Unsolved Mysteries segment of the case. So the case file was only Unsolved Mysteries episode. That's all they had.
This is why I'm telling you he could have been a spy himself. Like, there was a cover-up.
The new investigator contacted Unsolved Mysteries and asked if they still had the man's suicide note or any other information about the case, and the show's producers still had the suicide note and were able to give it to the investigator along with additional information. So that suicide note was, for 40 years, was in possession of a producer for Unsolved Mysteries, and the case file only contained a VHS tape of Unsolved Mysteries segment on William Toomey's case. This makes no sense. This is so bizarre. This is bizarre. This is insane. This is literally insane.
I can't comment much on it because I'm not fully aware. I have no idea how film industry works if they keep the files with them.
Yeah, I doubt it. somehow doubt that they should keep the suicide note. Like they're not the authority on solved mysteries, you know. Anyways, in June of 2020, that same investigator contacted the show's producers again and told them that he believes he had figured out who William Tumi was. However, his identity has yet to be revealed, so we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But someone out there investigating thinks that they do know who he is. Such a bizarre and strange case. William Tumi.
Mm-hmm.
What a wild ride we've been on.
Definitely.
Do you feel like you've been on a crazy ride, the roller
Yeah.
coaster of a case with William Tumi?
It's actually quite exhausting to
It's
listen to it.
exhausting, yeah.
I can imagine the exhaustion you feel by like researching everything.
And I mean, there's another person potentially connected to being Tumi, and I didn't want to include it in this episode, but I think we're gonna do it soon. There's another man
A part 2.
from Boise, Idaho, who vanished mysteriously. He could be connected, but we'll talk about it. Anyway, so this is it.
Yeah, but one more thing. I remember at the very beginning of this episode, you mentioned something about William's tie. And at the back, there was something like P. White written on it. And we don't know what it stands for, but what if it actually was his real name? It was just ignored.
Yeah, I mean, now that when you think about that, the case file only contained unsolved mysteries, VHS tape. I think there's a chance they kind of didn't look into it that well.
Because P. White could be a name. Like, I don't know, Peter White.
Yeah.
Do we have any, like, news about it? Updates regarding that?
No,
based on your research?
No, I never found anything about that P. White.
I don't know, it just stuck up to me.
Anyways, guys, please leave your thoughts. What do you think about William Tumi? And we will talk to you very soon. Thank you for listening to this episode. Bye.
Bye.